Welcome to Billion Dollar Marketing Secrets Over Coffee with Biz Coach Steve Feld. Biz Coach Steve interviews fellow successful business owners about the strategies they have used to grow their businesses, and in turn, you can use them to help you navigate your business towards success. Ready to learn strategies to grow your business with less stress and build a long-term sustainable business to exceed your personal and business financial goals to build the business of your dreams? Well, you have come to the right place. Please welcome Biz Coach Steve Feld.
Hello, fellow business owners. Welcome to another episode of Experts Over Coffee. I'm Biz Coach Steve Feld, and my goal is to stop business owners from suffering entrepreneurial depression and make running their businesses much easier and more fun and highly profitable so they can reach 7 figures and beyond. Today, we have another great guest. For you. We have Kevin Aguanno. Now, Kevin is a well-known figure in the project management and agile communities. He's a university professor, author of over 30 books on project management related topics. Now, Kevin, he's a well-known figure in the project management and agile communities. He's a university professor, author of over 30 books on project management related topics, president emeritus of Project Management Association of Canada, and president of Procept Associates and TidalShift, 2 industry-leading management consulting and training companies. He is a winner of multiple international awards, holds numerous industry certifications, and has been named a fellow of the Association of Project Management in the UK and the Project Management Association of Canada. Please welcome Kevin.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here, Steve.
Glad to have you, Kevin. So first question is, a lot about project management. How did you start in that industry? What drew you to it?
Well, like most people in the project management space, we kind of fell into it. We didn't really plan this to be our career. It just kind of worked out. I was one of those tech whiz kids way back when you had to build your own computers with a soldering iron. So I was, started tinkering, got into technology. By the time I was programming before I ever saw a real computer, and was handing the software off to somebody written by hand to create the punch cards and run them for me and see what happens and bring me back the printout. So that was kind of my start. And when I went into university and everything, I realized something very quickly. Technology changes so fast. I had to make a choice. If I wanted to stay on the technology side, I'm going to be constantly treading water. I'm going to be constantly learning new technologies just to kind of stay at the level I'm at. And if you stop learning, you're going to fall behind. You're going to sink, right? So I had to figure out, do I want to constantly keep learning to stay where I am, or do I want to get ahead somehow? And I figured I love technology, but maybe managing technology businesses and having those technologists working for me might be more to my suit my interest better, because management science doesn't go obsolete overnight. We're using techniques we learned in the 50s and 70s still, so I could actually get ahead and still be involved in the industry. So that's how I got started. And managing these projects, managing software development projects, systems integration projects, interactive media kiosk projects. I built some of the first transactional websites on the internet. I managed those projects and quickly got snapped up by IBM when they were growing their e-business division. And inside IBM, I got more formal project management training, all these certifications. And I was there for 17 years. And by the time I left, I had an executive title, and I was recovering massive troubled projects and helping clients with huge strategic initiatives, many projects you've probably heard about. One of the last projects I was involved in before I left was the project that invented cloud computing back in 2003. So 2002, 2003. So I was very, very active in that space. And then I left. I took early retirement because I saw an opportunity in the agile space that IBM was not interested in pursuing at that time. The people up my management chain didn't see agile as anything serious. They thought it was a passing fad. So I asked to take early retirement so I could go pursue it on my own, and had massive success building my own consulting and training business around that.
Oh, excellent. And who are your primary customers?
Oh, it's interesting. It's changed over the years. Obviously, as you get started, you're working with small, mid-sized businesses, but it's rapidly grown. Right now, about 40% of my business is large corporations. IBM, major banks, Toyota, large industrial organizations, power companies, insurance companies, things like that. All kinds of projects that we assist with. A recent one, we were auditing a piece of a nuclear reactor refurbishment project, like all kinds of projects in all industries. That's about 40% of my business. Another 40% is working for governments, municipal governments, state or provincial governments, federal governments, government agencies, government-owned entities. Get involved with a lot of that kind of work. Everything from and inside that, I would include the government agencies like child welfare systems and things like that, as well as some of the three-letter agencies who are probably listening to us right now. So get involved in a lot of that kind of work. And then the last part, the last 20%, is we do some services directly to the public, primarily on the training side. We'll run some courses and sell tickets to the public, but that's a small part of our business. And that 20% is, some of it's done directly through us, but most of it is done through universities. So there's a 16 or 18 colleges and universities that run either undergrad, master's level courses, or sometimes professional development courses, continuing ed courses. They'll run those courses and subcontract all the instructional work out to us. So it's our staff, our course materials. We just put their logo on it. We come in and we teach. So we have about 16 or 18 colleges and universities in Canada and the US where we do that kind of work. And that's that part of that 20%.
Nice. And how long have you been in business?
Always. As far back as I can remember, I had an entrepreneurial bent. As a child, I was making little community newspapers with gossip and news from the 6 blocks in my neighborhood, and I'd go sell them door to door. I would, build little things and try and sell them door to door. I'd go, I was always looking for an angle on how I could make a buck, and was always trying to find new ways. So I was always involved in various business ventures. Even before I joined IBM, I was running my own business. I sold the first one and then moved into IBM. But while I was at IBM, I still had some side gigs going on, like many people do, because I get bored easy. This is what ADD looks like when you're an adult.
Yeah.
And then when I left IBM, I naturally just fell back into that model. It's interesting. I was at a trade show one time, many, many years ago, probably back in the late 80s, early 90s. And there was a plumber up on stage. It was about it was the idea of the conference was about tradespeople entering, that sort of getting more involved in broader construction. So you might be a plumber, an electrician, or a drywall guy. Instead of just doing that piece of work, you could get into the renovation trades and start, expanding your business opportunity. So there's this plumber up on stage, and he said couple things that were very profound that stuck with me. And has nothing to do with construction necessarily, but about entrepreneurism. He says, I think every one of you in the audience should probably start your own business, be your own boss. And he says, I know that sounds really crazy, but hear me out. He says, the number one objection people have to starting their own business is risk. It's like, but I got a job that's safe. He says, that's the most dangerous position you could have. He says, look at it this way. You've got one client, your boss. And if you upset them, you lose the job, you got nothing. Now you're hugely exposed and you're in deep trouble trying to find a job really quick. He says, look at me. I could have 100 customers. I could annoy 30 of them, and I still got enough money that I got food on the table and I'm paying the bills. He says, you're actually at less risk working for yourself. He says, the problem is most of us, if you go back in our family history, in recent memory, there's no role models of people that run their own business, right? Almost everybody in your family has a job working for somebody else. He says, but all you got to do is go back, 100 years, 125, 130 years, and almost everybody was self-employed. You were a butcher, you were a tailor, you were a farmer, you were You were something. You had a job, or you had your own job. You were a tradesperson. Most people, there were some that worked in factories and stuff, but most people worked for themselves. There are plenty of role models if you go back far enough. And he said for most of human history, up until the last 100 and whatever years, people were mostly self-employed. It's only been the last few generations where everybody's had a job. And now you feel it's too dangerous to run your own business. He says, stop that thinking, find role models in your family and get back in. He says, the other thing he says is, look, he says, I dropped out of school as soon as I turned 16. I never even finished high school. And he says, and I'm a successful businessman. He says, I make millions a year. I've got all kinds of staff working for me. If I can do it, any of you that have done college or university or even finished high school have got a leg up on me. He says, I'm not particularly smart. I'm just a hard worker, and I learn from my mistakes and don't repeat them. And he says, that's all it takes, right? And so I remember those two things, and that's what motivated me to keep me going.
Oh, nice. When a client comes to you, what is usually one of their typical problems? I know it'll be different for everyone, but an average problem.
So most of our business has evolved into we do training and management consulting, but most of it seems to be the training side, right? That's right now where a lot of the needs are, because things are changing so fast. Organizations are trying to deal with employees who are just reeling from technology-driven change, business process changes. We do a lot of resilience training right now because of COVID and what it's done to organizations, right? There's staff shortages. People are doing, 3 times the work they used to because their colleagues are gone. All this adapting to supply chain challenges, all that stuff. So we do most of our business right now is on the training side. And they'll come to us and they may say, I need a particular type of training because they've heard we offer it, change management training, resilience, project management, those things like that. Or they may come to us with a problem. So we recently had an organization approach us just last week, and their sales organization was full of millennials who are good at building relationships through social media and interacting with people. They're great at building connections with the customers. So they had wonderful relationships with their clients. This is for a pharmaceutical company. Wow. Their clients were doctors, right? Great relationships, but they didn't know how to turn that relationship into a sales discussion. They had a hard time making that leap, which is saying, now that we're great buddies and we're getting along great, and I know all your kids' names. By the way, I have a product I want to talk to you about. They're having a hard time with the awkwardness of that switch.
Yeah.
So we had to work with them and help them, figure out what is the problem. Is it incentive? Is it lack of knowledge of how to do this? Do they just need some coaching and mentoring, or do they need formalized training on specific skills, how to close a sale, how to start a sales discussion? We actually went in and did an assessment first, working with some of these individuals on a one-on-one basis to figure out where are the gaps, what are the barriers, and then we designed a custom training program around it. And that's a good chunk of our business, is this custom stuff. Either figure out what solves the problem, and often it's a combination, right? You do some assessments, you do some training, you do some coaching to help them apply the training in their situation, which could be, different from what was taught in the classroom. Some sustainment resources to help them keep the momentum going, right? So they don't lose faith and give up after a few months of doing this. And then we also work with their HR teams on their accountability and performance measurement system. So at the end of the year, somebody's going to have a performance review with their boss, and they're going to tell them, these were your targets. You hit them or you didn't. We're going to work with them to refine those targets so that these new behaviors are somehow included in their performance assessment. So they've got skin in the game. They've got incentive to make the change stick. So that's the kind of work that we do with our clients, often including a lot of custom case studies and things like that to really make it click with their group.
Excellent. And I know you're helping other people grow their businesses. In growing yours, every business has their own challenges, failures, whatever you'd like to call it. What was one of your challenges in your business as it was growing, and how'd you overcome it?
Well, one of the biggest ones we had was just the economic cycle. if you can appreciate, we have a training side to our business and we have a consulting side to our business, and they perform almost opposite of each other at different points in the economic cycle, right? So when business is booming, training business is doing great. Right. When the economy crashes, first thing everybody cuts is the training budgets because it's seen as icing or a luxury, right? Let's get rid of that. But the consulting revenues start to go up because companies need help dealing with the economic crash and the restructuring. So the first challenge I had was balancing the revenues a bit better. I still don't have the mix that I'm looking for. We're still too training heavy. And I don't want to stop training to make it balanced. I'd rather grow the consulting so they're more balanced. So I'm still working on getting more consulting as a revenues as a percentage of our business. So that's one challenge. The other one is, let's talk COVID. That's a huge economic impact. And I'm talking to you today from Canada, which had a greater shutdown than was prevalent throughout most of the US. As disruptive as the state shutdowns were across the US, I mean, our country shut down pretty much, right, across the board for deeper and longer. And the US economy bounced back much more quickly than the Canadian economy because these shutdowns did incredible damage to the economy. So we had some of the same programs, governments paying people to stay at home with some kind of emergency aid money, you know, for income replacement. So not everybody defaulted on their rent and mortgages and everything else, but still that just grew debt and the governments are further in the hole. So our economic damage was a bit deeper and a bit more broad, and we're still trying to recover from COVID. So my business, back in March, whatever it was, between March 11th and 15th or something like that, 2020, in 4 days, I had over $1 million of order cancellations in 4 days. The phone just rang and rang, and every time I picked up the phone or every email I opened up was another client canceling orders. So in 2019, we had a solid record-breaking year. And for the first third of 2020, before everything shut down, we had the best first quarter ever in the company's history. Wow. Right. And this company has been going since, the Canadian organization since 1983, but through acquisitions and mergers, we've bought out other companies and merged them in. We can trace our roots now to 1963 in California, is the furthest root of where this company started. But this first quarter of 2020 was our best quarter in the company's history ever, by far. And we were on track for an incredible year. And then COVID hits. Yeah. And the business just evaporated over a course of a few days. It was incredible. I talk about, first of all, personally depressing. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know whether I should drink or cry or both. Yeah. I just wanted to hide. But I thought, well, let me keep dealing with this. Let me try and, let me see where this goes. I still got to service my clients. So we sort of worked our way through that. And then everything just stopped because everything was frozen and everybody was waiting to see what happens. The government had shut down everything. And we thought this will be over in a couple months. And that extended and extended. Next thing you know, nothing happened all spring, all summer. And then around the fall of 2020, things started to pick up a bit because some people just couldn't wait any longer. There was just no opportunities, right? We had to proceed. So what we found at that point was business started coming back slowly. And it was huge amounts of restructuring on my part, cutting costs. I had to let a couple of people go, unfortunately. Some people had their hours reduced significantly, like from 40 hours a week to 10 hours a week, but we still needed them for the little bit of business that we did have, right, still. So I had to do some dramatic restructuring. I froze my pay. I stopped taking a paycheck for many, many months. I figured if we're cutting my staff's hours, me as the business owner, I shouldn't be drawing a salary. So I just did a pay freeze for me and just waited till we could get things turned around. And it took us until by the end of 2020, I'd stopped the losses. We'd patched the holes in the rowboat, right? We still had water in the bottom of the boat, but no new water was coming in and we could start bailing, right? And by mid 2021, we were back in dry, the boat was empty. We were We were doing okay,
Yeah.
but there were still stormy seas, right? The things were, the economic damage and the shutdowns were still happening. Waves of COVID were coming, but we still managed to steer our way through it. And 2022 was actually a decent year. I mean, we're not quite at 2019 levels, but we're close. I think last time I checked, we were within 10% of our 2019 highs. So we've mostly recovered now, and 2023 is looking spectacular. A little bit nervous. They're talking about it, these interest rate increases and global economy slowing down again. I thought, oh gosh, what do we do now? But we did patch the holes of the boat. We got us floating. We cut all the fat. We've adjusted the company. I think we could probably weather the next storm much better now.
Nice. Yeah, it was crazy in 2020. It's like I lost 58 paid speaking gigs, but it ended up being my best year. So.
Yeah. It's funny. By the end of 2020, we broke even. I think it was within plus or minus a couple $1,000s of breaking even. By 2021, we made at the end of 2021, we had a modest profit. I think we were up 30K or something, right? Where normally, our profits are much more significant than that, right? But we survived, right? And that's the big thing, I think, was just we got through it. A lot of our competitors didn't. The training industry is a very fragmented industry. There's lots of mom and pop organizations, small entrepreneurs, maybe one or two or three trainers banding together to form a business. And a lot of them went out of business because they just couldn't wait. Even if my sales dropped 51%. So our business cut in half. So I could survive that because I had such a volume of business. There's still enough there. We could keep the lights on and keep getting some core people paid and keep things happening. But a lot of businesses, you cut sales 50%, you're out of business. They just shut down. People went off and got jobs or went off on some other government program or something. So we actually took market share. Because we were still around, clients turned to us who were dealing with other companies, and they said, well, they're out of business, or they're around, but they couldn't adapt to online training because everybody had to stay home. We were doing online training for the last 10 years. So we were prepared. It's just more of that. We can do that. Right. So we were able to make the pivot, whereas a lot of companies couldn't. They were trying to learn how to do it and failed. And so we actually came out ahead from a market share perspective, won some really big clients. What also helped us was the mix of clients, because most government clients spent more during COVID while corporate clients were cutting back. So that helped offset some of the devastation for us. If we just had a corporate business, we probably would have been wiped out. And our public business wiped out completely. There was nothing left of that.
Well, I'm glad you got through all of that.
We did, and things are optimistic right now. I'm very positive. The future's looking rosy, but I'm afraid to say that without touching wood while I'm saying it, because you never know. This, we're getting signals. We may be in for another economic dip, but I think we're better prepared for it now. I think surviving COVID tempered us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you would tell like another business owner to focus on right now?
I think because of this expected global economic downturn, we're expecting maybe in the second half of 2023, people are predicting, because of interest rates, because of, still pandemics and other viruses going around, because of Russia and the Ukraine and oil prices and all the supply chain issues out of China and all that stuff that's impacting everybody. I think the number one thing you can do right now is don't let your guard down. Keep, as my dad used to say, keep your nose clean. Get rid of your debt, shed as much debt as you can, run your business tightly, leanly, watch the dollars, watch what's going out the door, and keep it as tight as you can. This is not a time to be luxurious and splurging, I think. We need to be defensive more than at this point, I think, just to make ourselves still be ready to weather this expected storm. At the same time, though, remember what happened during COVID. I took market share. Yeah. So I didn't stop selling. I didn't stop writing proposals. I made sure all my salespeople were still on board because that I knew there was an opportunity. With every time there's a threat, there's an opportunity. And I knew for me, it was if I'm the guy left standing at the end of the day, people are going to remember that and they're going to go with the one that they can rely on.
Absolutely. And that's what I've been telling business owners all the time. It's like, when the economy, whatever starts to dip, all these pandemics, there's always going to be something. You adjust, you pivot, you shift, you got to keep moving forward because the people who don't, they're gone.
Yeah, the world is full of change. It's interesting if you think back to what Darwin said. It wasn't survival of the fittest. That's a misunderstanding. If you actually read his actual words, it wasn't who's fittest. It's who is best able to adapt to the changes, who is best able to adapt. And, stuff is going to happen. Life is going to throw us curveballs. Can you adapt? Can you adapt efficiently? Can you adapt quickly? That's what's going to make you successful.
Absolutely. And Kevin, how can someone reach out to you, say that they heard the episode and they're like, hey, wait, Kevin could help me in my business. How can they get in touch with you?
Oh, excellent. Well, I could give you all this numbers and email addresses, but nobody's going to remember all that. So I'm just going to ask you to put them in the show notes. So when people are listening to this, they can look at the show notes and they can find the contact info there.
Absolutely. We will have all of Kevin's contact information in the show notes so you can reach out to him and see how he can help you in your business. Kevin, I just want to say we had a great time. Thank you for being our guest and sharing your expertise.
Thank you very much, Steve. And I've enjoyed listening to your podcast series. So this new podcast series is quite interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing who else you can interview and what I can learn from them. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Kevin. And if you like Kevin and the other experts on the show, please make sure you give us a positive review. Kevin and I'd love to hear how great we are. I'm sure he would like to hear that as well. And make sure you subscribe to the channel and share the episode. I'm Biz Coach Steve Feld, wishing you and your business much success.
We hope you liked today's guest on $1 billion marketing secrets over coffee. If you'd like to see how much hidden revenue we can uncover for you, well, click on the link in the show notes to speak with Steve. Mention the podcast when you book the meeting. You will receive a special gift. Make sure to like this episode and subscribe to this podcast to hear other great proven business leaders share their strategies to help you grow your business.